The courtroom went dead silent the moment the Rolex hit the floor. It didn't drop. It didn't slip. 19-year-old Brandon Mercer ripped it off his wrist and threw it across Judge Judy's courtroom like a baseball. The gold watch bounced once against the polished wood, spun in a circle, and slid directly toward the bailiff's shoes. Gasps erupted from the audience. Someone in the back whispered, "Oh my God." But Brandon only leaned back in his chair with a smirk. "You want it so bad," he said loudly. "Take it." Judge Judy didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even look at the watch. Her eyes stayed locked on the senator's son. And for the first time since walking into court, Brandon's smile started to fade. Because the courtroom wasn't reacting the way he expected. Nobody was impressed. Nobody was laughing. Not even his father. United States Senator Daniel Mercer sat stiffly in the gallery behind him. Jaw clenched so hard the muscles trembled beneath his skin. Cameras weren't allowed inside the courtroom, but reporters were waiting outside, and everybody knew it. Judge Judy slowly removed her glasses. "You think this is a game?" Brandon shrugged. "It's a TV courtroom." "No," she said coldly. "This is where people come after someone with money ruins their lives." The audience went silent again. And that's when the young woman sitting at the plaintiff's table finally started crying. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly enough to make the room uncomfortable. Her name was Elena Vasquez, 24 years old, first-grade teacher, 3 jobs, student loans. And according to her lawsuit, Brandon Mercer had destroyed the one thing keeping her family alive, her car. But the truth was far worse than a damaged vehicle. Because what happened that night outside a downtown fundraiser had started a chain reaction. Nobody in that courtroom fully understood yet. Not even Senator Mercer, and before the day was over, his entire political career would be hanging by a thread. Judge Judy turned toward Elena. "You're suing for the maximum?" "Yes, Your Honor. $5,000. Elena nodded weakly. "That car was all I had." Brandon laughed under his breath. "You're crying over a Honda?" Judge Judy's head snapped toward him. "You speak again without permission, I'll have you removed." Brandon leaned back, but his grin returned, because spoiled people rarely recognize danger until consequences finally arrive. And Brandon Mercer had spent his entire life protected from consequences. Until now, Judge Judy opened the file. "Miss Vasquez, explain what happened." Elena inhaled shakily. 3 months ago I was catering a fundraiser at the Hawthorne Hotel." Senator Mercer shifted slightly in his seat. Elena noticed so did Judge Judy. "It was one of Senator Mercer's campaign events," Elena continued. "I work weekends for a catering company because teaching doesn't pay enough." A few people in the audience nodded knowingly. "My little brother Mateo was waiting for me outside after the event ended because our mother was in the hospital that week." Judge Judy looked up. "How old is your brother?" 16. "And your mother?" "She has kidney failure." The room quieted further. Elena swallowed hard. "We were leaving around midnight when Brandon came out with his friends." Brandon rolled his eyes dramatically. "Oh my God." Judge Judy pointed a finger instantly. One more interruption. He raised both hands sarcastically. "Fine." Elena continued carefully. They were drinking. Senator Mercer suddenly leaned forward. "Objection. There's no proof." Judge Judy cut him off immediately. "You are not the attorney in this courtroom, Senator," the audience murmured. Daniel Mercer slowly sat back down. Humiliated, Elena continued. They were yelling at valet workers. One of Brandon's friends was recording videos on his phone. Judge Judy nodded. "And then?" Elena's voice weakened. "My brother recognized Brandon because of the campaign posters all over town. He asked him for a picture." Brandon scoffed again. Judge Judy didn't even look at him this time. "He told my brother to get lost." Mateo, sitting quietly behind his sister, lowered his head. "He called him a charity case." The audience reacted immediately. "What happened next?" Judge Judy asked. Elena hesitated, then her face hardened. "My brother got embarrassed and started walking away." Brandon thought it was funny. so he threw a half-full liquor bottle from the parking curb. Brandon sat upright. That's not what happened. Judge Judy ignored him. The bottle hit our windshield. The courtroom became completely silent. Elena, Judge Judy said carefully. Did it injure anyone? It shattered glass across the dashboard. Mateo got cut near his eye. Judge Judy looked toward the teenager. A faint scar sat just beneath his eyebrow. And suddenly Brandon didn't look quite as relaxed anymore. But that's not even why we're here, Elena whispered. Judge Judy narrowed her eyes. What do you mean? Elena looked down at her hands. My car stopped working 3 days later because the impact damaged more than the windshield. And I lost my second job because I couldn't get there anymore. Her breathing started trembling now. My mother missed 2 dialysis appointments because I had no transportation. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Judge Judy stared directly at Brandon, but he still looked irritated more than guilty, like this entire thing was wasting his time. Then he said the worst possible thing. So buy another car. The audience erupted. Judge Judy slammed her hand against the desk. Quiet, but the damage was done. Even Senator Mercer closed his eyes briefly in disbelief. Judge Judy leaned forward slowly. Young man, do you have any understanding whatsoever of how normal people live? Brandon smirked faintly. I understand people lie for money. Elena looked stunned. Judge Judy's voice dropped lower. You think she's lying? She saw my last name and filed a lawsuit. Happens all the time. Judge Judy flipped through documents. Interesting. Brandon crossed his arms confidently. Exactly. But according to repair records, your insurance company already admitted partial fault. The confidence disappeared from his face for half a second. Only half a second. That doesn't mean anything. Judge Judy looked towards Senator Mercer. Did your office contact Miss Vasquez after the incident? The senator answered carefully. My campaign staff reached out to apologize. Elena suddenly laughed bitterly through tears. Apologize? Judge Judy turned. Elaborate. Elena reached into her bag with shaking hands and pulled out an envelope. They offered me $2,000 if I signed a confidentiality agreement. The courtroom exploded into whispers. Senator Mercer's face went pale instantly. Judge Judy opened the document, and the entire energy in the room changed. Because this wasn't just about a reckless rich kid anymore. This was damage control. Political damage control. Judge Judy adjusted her glasses. This agreement specifically states Miss Vasquez cannot discuss the incident publicly. Senator Mercer spoke carefully. That's standard legal procedure. No, Judge Judy replied sharply. Not when your son allegedly injured a minor and caused property damage. Daniel Mercer's composure cracked slightly. Elena's exaggerating what happened. Judge Judy looked at Mateo. You were injured? The teenager nodded quietly. Did anyone from the Mercer campaign ask about your medical condition? Mateo hesitated. No. Judge Judy looked furious now. Brandon sensed the shift and leaned forward aggressively. This is insane. Nobody forced them to reject the money. Elena turned toward him for the first time. You offered us money because your father was announcing his governor campaign the next morning. Silence. Absolute silence. Even Judge Judy paused, because suddenly the timeline mattered. A lot. Senator Mercer immediately stood. This hearing is becoming political theater. Judge Judy pointed toward the seat. Sit down. He didn't move. She repeated it louder. Sit down. Slowly, reluctantly, the senator obeyed, but sweat had started forming near his temples. Judge Judy stared at the confidentiality agreement again, then at Brandon, then at Elena. And something clearly wasn't adding up. Miss Vasquez, she said slowly, why didn't you accept the money if your family was struggling? Elena's eyes filled instantly. Because my brother heard them laughing. The room fell quiet again. One of Brandon's friends said, give them enough to disappear. Brandon muttered under his breath. Oh my God. No, Elena snapped suddenly, voice breaking. You don't get to act bored. The entire courtroom froze, even Judge Judy allowed it. Alina stood now, tears streaming down her face. My mother was throwing up after missing dialysis, and I was sleeping in hospital chairs while your lawyers kept emailing me about silence agreements. Brandon's expression hardened. You're being dramatic. That sentence changed everything, not because of Elena's reaction, because of Senator Mercer's. The senator looked horrified, not at Elena, at his son, as if he finally realized Brandon was incapable of pretending to be human. Judge Judy folded her hands slowly. Mr. Mercer, she said quietly, did you review this agreement personally? The senator hesitated. Too long, and Judge Judy noticed. So you did. It was handled by campaign counsel, but approved by you? Another pause. Yes. The audience murmured again. Judge Judy leaned back. You're running on ethics reform, correct, Senator? He swallowed. Yes. And meanwhile, your team attempted to silence a working-class family after your intoxicated son injured a child. That is not what happened. Judge Judy raised an eyebrow, then explained the agreement. Before he could answer, a voice came from the courtroom entrance. I can explain it. Everyone turned. A young man in a gray suit stood near the doors holding a phone. Brandon's face instantly changed color. Tyler? The young man stepped forward nervously. Judge Judy frowned. And you are? Tyler Reed. I was there that night. Brandon shot up from his chair. You said you weren't coming. Judge Judy's eyes sharpened instantly. Interesting. Very interesting. Tyler looked terrified. I didn't want to at first. Judge Judy motioned him forward. Why are you here now? Tyler stared directly at Brandon. Because he lied. The courtroom exploded again. Brandon pointed furiously. You little snake. Sit down! Judge Judy barked. Tyler sat in the witness seat, hands trembling. I was one of Brandon's friends at the fundraiser. Judge Judy nodded slowly. And? Tyler pulled out his phone. I still have the video. The air left the room. Even Senator Mercer stopped breathing for a second. Brandon looked genuinely panicked now. Not annoyed, not arrogant. Panicked. Judge Judy extended her hand. Bring it here. Tyler walked the phone to the bailiff. And for the first time all day, Brandon Mercer looked afraid. The video began playing through courtroom speakers. Loud music, drunken laughter, blurry parking lot lights. Then Brandon's voice. Watch this. The bottle flew across the screen. Glass shattered instantly. Elena screamed. Matteo ducked, and then Brandon started laughing, not nervous laughter, not shocked laughter, cruel laughter. The audience gasped audibly. But the worst part came next. Tyler's camera kept recording as Elena rushed toward her bleeding brother. And Brandon said 6 words that destroyed the room. Daddy's lawyers will handle it. Judge Judy slowly looked up from the screen. Senator Mercer had gone completely pale. Brandon looked like he wanted to disappear. But Tyler wasn't finished. There's another video. Brandon stood immediately. No. Judge Judy's voice cut through the courtroom. Sit down. Tyler opened another file. This was recorded later outside the hotel. The second video played. This time the camera showed Senator Mercer himself, speaking with campaign staff. The audio was shaky, but perfectly clear. We cannot let this surface before the announcement. One aide asked, What about the kid? And Senator Mercer answered, Offer money. Make them sign something. The courtroom erupted into chaos. People stood. Whispers exploded everywhere. One woman literally covered her mouth in shock. Judge Judy slammed the desk repeatedly. Order! Senator Mercer looked devastated. Not angry, devastated, because he knew the election was over. And somehow, that still wasn't the worst part. Judge Judy turned toward Tyler carefully. Why keep these videos hidden until now? Tyler's eyes filled with guilt. Because I was scared of them. He looked toward the senator. My dad works for Mercer Construction. Silence again. They threatened to fire him if I caused problems. Judge Judy narrowed her eyes. Who threatened you? Tyler hesitated, then pointed toward a man sitting near the courtroom exit. One of Senator Mercer's campaign advisors. The man immediately stood. This is ridiculous. Bailiff. Judge Judy interrupted. The advisor froze. Judge Judy's stare could cut steel now. You threatened a witness? Nobody threatened anyone. Tyler shook visibly. You called me 3 times. The advisor looked toward Senator Mercer desperately. But the senator didn't defend him, didn't say a word, because at this point the damage was radioactive. Judge Judy removed her glasses slowly. In 30 years, she said quietly, I have seen wealthy people try to buy silence. I have seen entitled children protected from responsibility. I have seen parents confuse privilege with immunity. She looked directly at Brandon. But I have rarely seen this level of arrogance. Brandon finally cracked. This is all because of a stupid accident. Alina stared at him in disbelief. A stupid accident? Yes, he shouted. You people act like I killed someone. You almost blinded my brother. Brandon threw his hands up. He's fine. Mateo suddenly stood. No, I'm not. The teenager's voice shook, but he kept going. I can't play baseball anymore. Silence. Every eye turned toward him. Mateo swallowed hard. The doctor said the glass damage affected my depth perception. Alina burst into tears immediately. I didn't tell her because she already had too much stress. Even Judge Judy looked stunned now. Mateo's voice cracked. I was supposed to try out this year. Brandon looked speechless, for the first time all day. He looked ashamed, just briefly. But Judge Judy noticed it. So this wasn't about a windshield, she said quietly. Elena shook her head through tears. He loved baseball. Mateo sat back down, humiliated. The courtroom atmosphere changed completely. This wasn't rich versus poor entertainment anymore. This was real loss, real damage, and everyone could feel it. Judge Judy looked toward Brandon. Did you know this? No. His voice sounded smaller now. Almost childlike. Judge Judy nodded slowly. Because you never cared enough to ask. That one sentence hit harder than shouting ever could. Even Senator Mercer looked crushed. Then Judge Judy turned toward the senator. And you. He looked up weakly. You raised a son who believes money erases consequences. Daniel Mercer lowered his head. Judge Judy continued. You know what destroys countries, Senator? Nobody moved. Not poor people. Not immigrants. Not struggling workers. Her voice sharpened. Entitled men teaching their children they are above accountability. Complete silence. Then she delivered the ruling. Judgment for the plaintiff. Maximum amount. Brandon closed his eyes, but she wasn't done. And I strongly recommend Miss Vasquez pursue this matter in civil court. The audience murmured loudly. Judge Judy looked toward the campaign advisor next. And if witness intimidation occurred, I suggest prosecutors review that immediately. The man looked sick, but then Judge Judy leaned forward one final time and delivered the sentence nobody expected. Senator Mercer. He slowly looked up. You came into this courtroom trying to protect your campaign. Pause. You should have spent more time protecting your son from becoming this person. The senator looked completely broken now, not politically, personally, like a father realizing he failed long before the cameras ever arrived. Brandon stared at the floor silently, no arrogance left, no smirk, no attitude, just humiliation. But the moment that truly ended everything happened as court adjourned. Because reporters had already gathered outside. Someone leaked the videos within the hour. By evening, every news station in the state was running the same headline, Senator, C. Son caught on video after hotel incident. Then the second clip surfaced. The cover-up, the silence agreement, the pressure campaign. By midnight, Senator Mercer's biggest donors started withdrawing support. 2 days later, his ethics committee resigned publicly. 3 days later, polling numbers collapsed. And 1 week after the courtroom hearing, Daniel Mercer stood behind a podium outside City Hall, gray-faced, exhausted, defeated, and announced he was suspending his campaign for governor. Reporters shouted questions instantly, but one reporter asked the only question that mattered. Senator Mercer, do you regret how your campaign handled the incident? The senator paused for a long moment, then answered quietly, No. The crowd murmured in confusion. Daniel Mercer looked directly into the cameras. I regret raising a son who thought another family's pain was beneath him. Back inside her apartment, Elena watched the speech on a cracked television beside her mother's dialysis machine. Mateo sat silently nearby holding an old baseball glove he no longer used. And for the first time in months, Elena finally exhaled. Not because the money fixed everything. It didn't. Not because justice erased the damage. It couldn't. But because somebody powerful had finally been forced to hear the word no. And sometimes, for people who spend their whole lives unheard, that matters more than anything else.